Hey, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, we're going to discuss how you can easily submit an app to the App Store. Now, before we get started, you're actually going to need to enroll for an Apple developer account in the Apple developer program using a valid Apple ID. So if you look at my screen, you'll see that I'm actually on the Apple developer program, and I actually put a link to this in the description box below. So I'm not actually going to create an account because I already have one. But if you actually look on the website, you'll see that it's actually two types of accounts here. So the first type of account that you have is an individual. Now this is if you're the sole proprietor, so if you're the only person in the business and you just want to get started using your Apple ID, so if you're just an indie dev, then you might want to just look into creating an individual account. But if you're someone who actually has a registered company and you're actually a business, then you probably don't want to use the individual account. You want to use an organization account and register with that. Now, it's also worth noting as well that when you're registering with an organization account, you actually do need to provide some of your business information. So make sure that you have that ready. And you'll also need to get your business account approved and verified. So it may take a bit longer to actually enroll in the program as an organization rather than enrolling as an individual. But I wouldn't look at that as a shortcut. I would definitely make sure that if you are a registered business and you want your account to be a business account, then 100% enroll as an organization. Also as well, if you don't have an Apple ID, then I'd highly recommend that you create one and you use this to enroll and sign up for the Apple Developer Program. Now, it's also worth noting as well that this membership isn't free if you want to distribute an app onto the store. So if you actually just go to this page where it breaks down the benefits and the resources that you get. If you're someone who just wants to start out just building simple applications on your device, now you don't want to access like any of the capabilities such as push notifications and whatnot, then I'd highly recommend that you just stick with using your Apple ID and save yourself some money. But if you're someone who needs to actually access some more advanced features such as push notifications or certain things that require capabilities within Xcode, then you probably will need to sign up for the Apple Developer Program. And if you're someone who wants to actually publish an app onto the App Store as well. Now, scrolling down, the cost of this is $99, and you need to also do this every single year. So it's not a one-time payment, it's an annual payment every single year to almost renew your license. After enrolling onto the Apple Developer Program, what you want to then do is in your Xcode, so you can open up any project, you just want to do this within Xcode, make sure you go to your preferences, and then on the accounts tab, make sure that you sign in with your Apple ID so that your Apple ID will be linked to your Xcode application. So for the ease of this tutorial, we're actually going to let Xcode handle most of the heavy lifting for us by automatically signing our certificates and provisioning profiles. But if you work in a larger team and organization, then I will actually have a video in the future that handles provisioning. So for now, just make sure that your Apple ID is hooked up to your Xcode application and you make sure that your team is selected in this drop down as well. Now, this bundle identifier that I actually have here is just a dummy bundle identifier for just a dummy app that I created. Now, I can't remember if I created an app called Test Run 2, so I'm just going to bump this up to Test Run 3. But this is the bundle identifier that we're essentially going to use for our app on AppStoreConnect. Now, another thing that you want to do as well is make sure that before you upload a build is that your application has an app icon. So in the assets folder, you want to make sure that you have your app icon set, or else if you try to upload a build, it will actually fail. Now, if you want to learn more about how to add an app icon to an Xcode project, I do have a video on how to add app icons to your applications. So I'll leave a link to that so you can check it out. So we're almost ready to upload our build, but I just want to discuss one more thing on our project. And on the general tab, if you just go to Xcode, you'll notice that you actually have these numbers here called version and build. So what is this for? Well, when you release a new app, you actually want to give it a unique version that you're able to submit and users will download, with it being either your first release or adding new versions. Well, that's the version, as you can see here, and the number is 1.00, which just means that this is version 1. Let's actually break this number down a bit more with how I tackle each one. So the first part, the 1 represents the major version. Changing or setting this normally means you're doing a big or major release. Let's say you have an app that has changed the branding of it completely, then you probably want to increase the version of this to the next number, i.e. if it was 1, then you want to go to 2. Now the next number is the minor. Now the minor version, this is normally when you build a new feature within that version that you released, or if you fixed a bug. So let's say, for example, in an app we had it where we added in a new screen, then I personally would increase the minor version. So now this release would be 1.1, and then if I had another release with another set of bug fixes, I would increase it to 1.20. The final number that we're going to discuss here is patch, and this is normally reserved for smaller fixes or improvements. So let's say you had a small typo in your app and you need to get a version out, then you'd want to set the version to 1.0.1 since it's just a small fix. Okay, cool. So let's go back to Xcode. So as you can see here in Xcode, our version is set to 1.0 because this is the first version of our app's release. So that's why we set it like so. Now the other thing that we have here is the build number. So you may be wondering, what is the point of the build number? Well, I like to reserve and increment the build number for different builds of that version. So let me give you an example. Let's say we're working on version 1.00 of our app and we submit to the App Store with a build number of 1. I check the app and then realize that there's actually a bug in one of the features. Rather than me do a version 1.1.0, I would just leave the version as 1.00 and change the build number to 2, since this is a fix within this version that hasn't been released yet. The only time I change the version number is when I need to make a change to a version that has been released. So now we've discussed archiving. What we want to do now is we want to create a version of 1 and a build number 1, since this is the first build we're going to do. We need to actually archive our project, and in order to do this for an iOS app, you want to make sure that on the devices you select any devices here. Now if you're working on a Mac app, then you actually have an option to choose this for the Mac application. So let's actually select this now, and then after selecting that option you want to go to Product and then Archive, and then you'll realize that your Xcode project is now archiving all the files within your project and getting this ready so you can prepare it for submission. Cool. So once you finish archiving, you should now see this screen called the organizer. And what the organizer allows you to do is see information about a build that you've uploaded. So you can view all the information about the build as well as different archives. And you have two buttons here to the right. So the first button we're going to discuss here is the validate app, and what this allows us to do is it allows us to check to see if our app is okay, so it meets all the requirements. It's like kind of like a checklist before we actually even hit the distribute button. So you can actually run this before you actually attempt to send this to the App Store. But what we're going to do is actually run distribute app, because at the end of distribute app it actually validates the app for you as well. So let's choose distribute app, and then you'll see these options here. Now, the option that we care about right now is AppStoreConnect, because we want to send a build to the App Store. So let's make sure that the AppStoreConnect option is selected, and we'll choose next. And then the next thing that we want to do here is choose upload, because we don't want to export this, because we don't want to handle this manually. We want Xcode to upload this for us automatically. So let's choose next. So as you can see here, because we've not actually created our app on AppStoreConnect, which we'll get to in a second, Xcode is telling us that we actually must do that, and we can do that via Xcode. So I'm just going to hit next, and what this will do is it will create an app for us on AppStoreConnect automatically. Now if you already have an app on AppStoreConnect that you want to upload this build to, you actually won't see this step, and instead you'll just go straight to the next step that we'll go to. Now we have these options. Now I'm not going to go into what each one of these mean right now, but all I would say is that you probably do want to make sure that these are all turned on, because it will help you in the long run. So let's just hit next. And then this option here is if you want to manually choose a provisioning profile, or if you want Xcode to manually handle this for you. So we want this to automatically manage this for us because we don't want to handle it. So you want to hit next. And then what's going to happen now is that Xcode is actually going to start the process to upload this to AppStoreConnect once we finish hitting upload. So we get a summary of all the information of our app. And then now we're going to hit upload. And you'll see here that it's uploading the application to AppStoreConnect. So we're going to wait for this to finish, and then we'll come back to the video. Okay, cool. So as you can see, our build is now successfully uploaded to AppStoreConnect. And we actually have a link, we actually have a button here that will actually directly take us to AppStoreConnect as well if we wanted to. So I'm just going to click on this. And then this here is called as you can see, AppStoreConnect. And what you're able to do here is you're able to actually view and manage your apps on the App Store on this website. So Apple Developer allows you to manage your application's resources and capabilities, and AppStoreConnect is what you would use to actually manage your app on the App Store. So we're going to sign into this and then we're going to view our app. So when you log in to AppStoreConnect, you'll see that you get these options, and the option that we care about for us right now is the section called My App. So let's click on that. And then within My Apps, you should notice that you can see the application that you've just created here. So these are all the applications that I have right now, but you can see these are all the applications here. So if I click into one of my applications, you'll now see that we get all the information and the form that we can use to actually submit our app onto the App Store. But before you do that, you actually want to see if your build was successfully uploaded, and you can see that by going to the TestFlight tab here, like so. And what you need to do is, before you're able to actually submit your build, you need to make sure that the build has finished processing. Now I'm going to go through all the different sections in the App Store, and by the time I finish doing that, this probably will have finished processing because this isn't a big build at all. So we just go back to App Store. We'll go through each section. So by default, because it's the first version of our application, it's actually marked as 1.0. But if we were actually doing an app update, you would actually realize that there's actually a plus button here where you can actually create a new submission and label it with a new version. And you can also see you can add in a Mac app for your app as well as a tvOS app. But let's just go through each section. And the first section we're going to go through here is the submission section. So if you scroll down, you'll see here that you've actually got a drop down where you can actually enter in different information for different languages if your app has been localized for them. And you'll notice that you actually have a section here for screenshots. Now, when you're uploading your app onto the App Store, you need to actually provide screenshots for your app depending on the platform you're using. I would do is I would actually provide the screenshots for all the relevant sizes so that they look nice on the App Store, because you're trying to market your app, right? So you want to make sure that this looks great. Now, you're not just also limited to screenshots as well. You can also upload videos as well if you wanted to, and you can actually view all the sizes by clicking on the link here to view the sizes in the Media Manager. So if I just open up this link, you'll see here all the different sizes that you can actually upload as well. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see here that you have a text box for promotional text. So this is if you want to promote something in your application. Description is the description of your application. Keywords is any keywords that your app has. You also have the support URL for users as well as a marketing URL. And this is where you can actually label and change the version of your application on the App Store. And your copyright information. And this app routing coverage file, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know what that is, but if you do know, then leave it in the comment section below. And then app clip is if your application supports app clip, then you can submit your app clip information in here. If your application is an iMessage app, then you can submit the info here, and Apple Watch app, and etc, etc. Now for build, when our build actually finishes processing in TestFlight, it will actually appear here, so we're able to select it and submit it onto the App Store. And then we also have an option for Game Center if you're using that. App review information. So if you need to allow the tester to log into your application to actually use it and see features, then you probably want to fill out this section and provide as much information as possible for the tester as well as your contact information. Because if a tester downloads your app and they're not able to actually sign into your app, then it's actually possible for it to get rejected. So make sure that you fill out this information if you actually do need to authenticate users to access your application. And you can also attach any kind of videos or files or documents as well that support your submission. Now, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see here that there's a version release. We can choose how your application is released as well. So you can actually have it released automatically, or you can choose manual, where you manually select the button to release it onto the store. Now, if you just go into the other section, app information, this is just the information that displays on the App Store when you view it for the first time. So in the list of results and whatnot, or when you actually open up the app page for your when you open up the app information page for your app on the App Store, this will have the name that someone can see, as well as subtitles, and also as well Any kind of tags and categories and whatnot will go in here as well. And if we go to the next one, this is where you can set how much your app costs. So you can choose a price, and you can also choose as well the jurisdictions. So right now I've not set a price, but if I was to choose free, you can see here, once I've selected free, I'm actually able to choose what countries I want my app to be available in. So that's how you do that. App privacy is something new that was just recently brought in. So what this is Apple's way of being more transparent with what data your app collects. Now, if you're someone who collects the user's information and stores that for like tracking purposes, or if you use that for like serving ads and whatnot, then you actually need to fill out this bit and be honest about what it is that your application uses, so that when someone goes onto the App Store and they view your app information, they can see what data they're actually sharing with your application. Now, I don't have a guide for this, and to be honest with you, this is something which isn't as straightforward. So you may want to actually get some kind of professional help to actually fill this out properly for your application. Now, obviously, if your app doesn't, access any kind of user data, that you just say it doesn't access anything. But if you are accessing user data and using ads in some way, then definitely make sure you get help for this. And then this section is the rating and review. So here you can actually see the ratings that your application has gotten from users. Now, there's no ratings for my app, so I can't actually reply to any reviews or ratings, but you can see them here. And then version history tells you the history of your application as it was submitted. And then app review is the place where you can actually see your app in review with Apple. And there's all these other features here that actually relate specifically to different capabilities, but I'm not going to cover them in this video because they're not specific to an App Store submission. Like, you don't really need to do any of these things. So let's just go back to TestFlight and see if our app has finished processing. And as you can see, our app has now finished processing. Now, when it finishes, you'll get this option here called missing compliance. And if you click on manage, it will tell you that does your app use encryption. Now, my application doesn't use any encryption, but if it does, then if your app does, then you probably do want to hit yes and fill out the relevant information. So I'm going to hit no because I don't use any kind of encryption. And I'm going to hit this to say start internal testing, like so. So now our application is ready for testing, but we're not going to go over that in this video. We'll go over that in another video. But what we could do now is actually submit our app onto the App Store. Now, I know for a fact that this app is going to get rejected because it's way too simple, but I'm just going to show you the process of how you can submit this build. So if you go to App Store, and then if you just scroll down to select a build, you should see now you have this button called select a build. And now we can actually select that build and then hit done, like so. And then if we can hit save. And now what you want to do is actually select the option here to add for review. Now, I think this might fail because I don't have information. Yep. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm actually going to need to fill out all the information first. And then once I fill out all the information, then I'm able to actually add this for review. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, cool. So I've actually filled out the information now. Now I'm just going to go through a few gotchas just if they catch you out. And because they can catch you out, you know I've been doing this for like quite some time. So the first thing that I want to discuss is the App Store screenshots. Now, what I've done is I've uploaded these just like dummy screenshots because obviously I know this isn't a real application. So what you can do is you can actually Google the App Store screenshot sizes so you know the sizes that you want to use. But you want to make sure that you upload them for these main ones here. Now, another thing you want to make sure is filling out all the information on the relevant sections that I went through before. And as well, if your application doesn't require sign in, then make sure that you untick this box. But if it does, then make sure that you fill out this whole section here. So now that I've done all that, we're going to choose add for review. And what this allows us to do now is it allows us to actually review and have different items that we want to submit for app review at the same time. So right now we only have this version here, which is the one that we just created. And if you want to actually view the app reviews, you can actually go to the section here where it says app review, like I said before. Now let's go into ready for review. And then when in here, what you want to do is that if you want to submit this version, you want to choose submit to app review. Now, this application has been submitted for app review and its status here is called waiting for review. So as this changes in status, you'll actually get emails about where your app is up to. Now, I know for a fact that this build is going to get rejected because it's just way too simple. But based on your application, if it does get rejected, Apple will reply to you with a reason as to why your application was rejected, and you may need to talk to the reviewer or review the guidelines that they send you. Okay, cool. So that's everything in this video. If you found this video useful, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. Also, as well, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up, as well as subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bells to get updates for whenever I release a new video. That's everything from me. I'll catch you on a bit. Deuces.